If you're like me and you have nothing better to do than watch a bunch of YouTube lately, you've probably seen some sponsored videos about Humankind. Even though I really like the Civilization series, I was gonna ignore it, but then the only man who plays League of Legends that I actually respect recommended it to me. So I decided to give it a try. Humankind is a 4x game, which means it's 4 times a regular game. You have a city builder, a grand strategy game, a turn-based tactical combat simulator, and a JRPG all rolled into one. It's a game type so old that it was being programmed by boomers back in the 80s, so leave it to the ultimate boomer company to try to make one. One of the things the sponsored videos don't seem to be allowed to do is compare the game to the Civilization series. But this video isn't sponsored by Dick, so let's break out the Venn diagram and play some human Civ. Civkind? Humanization? I think the only reason they chose that name is that it's impossible to make a pun between humankind and civilization. I want to pause here for a moment to take a look at the loading screen and talk shit about it. You've got this scientist guy holding hands with this Viking woman. I do not think they're here for the same reasons. He's visibly trying to peel right, but she's dragging his ass down the hill. Her and like this army guy and a few other people with guns are out here for blood. But then you have some people like MC Hammer back here, just vibing. And you have this guy back here. I don't think he knows where he is. And you have an elephant, and you have an elephant. What? That's not a human, you stupid game. So the first thing you're gonna wanna do when you start the game is go to Settings, Audio, Music, and drag this slider all the way to the bottom. And with that, we can actually start. Now, I tried to play Civ 6, but I never really got into it. I think it might be because it sucked so much ass. But Civ 5 was basically the perfect game. Even Ice-T thinks so.
It's better than Civ 5 with the Brave New World expansion pack.
So how do you improve on that? Well, the big change from 5 to 6 was the addition of city districts and the ability to stack troops, both of which Humankind shamelessly rips off, but Humankind's implementation is slightly more refined. Instead of just smashing stacks of troops into each other, the game breaks down into a battlefield, and then turns into shitty XCOM, where you smash troops into each other. But even shitty XCOM is more involved than Civ, so I think the combat framework is much better. Did you notice how I loaded that last sentence? The framework is good. The combat itself is for stupid babies. Your soldiers don't do much beyond smash themselves into the enemy, and there's no clever tactics or anything. Battles are won or lost before they even start, so there's no reason to not just auto-resolve all of them. You could have some Into the Breach or XCOM type turn-based combat where the soldiers have some variety and can do more than just butt heads like NFL linemen trying to get CTE. It has the potential to be really great, but I don't review potential, so let's call it a missed opportunity and move on. It's one of many. Another difference you'll notice when you start the game is that you don't start with a settler. You begin as a nomadic Neolithic hunter-gatherer cool guy, and then you dick around the map for a few turns until you meet enough of these goals to advance to the next era. You have to meet these goals every era, so in that sense Humankind is a lot more goal-oriented than Civ is. Achieving these goals is what earns you fame, which is how you win the game. It's a lot less open-ended with its instructions, which I find disappointing. You either accomplish these goals or you lose the game. It's that simple.
If you might be a little more considerate.
After you get your brownie points, you can advance to the next era. Where the game diverges from Civ is that you get to pick a new civilization every era. So you can play as the Mycenaeans in the Ancient Era and China in the Classical Era, which is kind of nice, but it can make long games with many players a bit confusing, because even though we make a handsome avatar at the beginning, we always call a player by whatever civilization they're currently playing as.
Oh no!
It's like, oh, let me talk to my buddy, the Koreans. Sorry, dipshit, we're English now. And yeah, that's how societies evolve, but if there's anything I want to be consistent, it's the fucking name. By the way, what is it with video games and shitty hairstyles? I swear to God, between this and Skyrim, there's more bad hairstyles than the 1970s. Civilizations also get locked out when a player selects them, so if you want to play as the medieval English, you can't focus on your own development goals, you need to play the objective, or you could get locked out. And the same thing functionally goes for wonders. At the beginning of every era, you get a new set of wonders, and you get to select one of them to lock out other players from building. Wonders are a shared project, meaning you can build it anywhere in your empire and have any city or any number of cities working on it, which I like. Anyone who's ever been one turn away from finishing the Colossus in Civ, only for someone else to come along and finish it before you, will enjoy that mechanic. But what the wonders actually do is pretty mundane. There's not a lot of imagination on display with what bonuses, technologies, and resources can unlock. But then you reach the endgame, and just like every other 4x game in the history of the universe, the endgame is the most boring part. You've accumulated all the knowledge of the known universe, but you figured out fuck all to do with it. Civ has this problem too, so it makes sense a game ripping it off would also have it. But in every game I played, the turn counter eventually bugged out and wouldn't tick forward. So maybe that was the developer's idea of a built-in endgame. The games I was able to unbug, I got so bored I eventually just started a nuclear war for the lulz. Although the fucking narrator will like sass you for the things that they programmed in the game.
Well, somebody had to have that planetary first. Congratulations on fixing your place in history.
I think Stellaris is the only 4X game that has an interesting endgame, and their idea is basically to wipe out the entire galaxy in like a final boss fight. I think that works. But here, the final boss is pollution, and just like in real life, it's the most depressing crisis to try to overcome. People have said there are a lot of bugs, but I haven't really noticed them, although Cyberpunk might have desensitized me a little bit to that. There are definitely underdeveloped aspects of this game. If you aren't craving 4X like some kind of boomer crack addict, it might be worthwhile to wait until Humankind has been patched and has some extensive DLC. At the barest minimum, the economy needs to be dramatically rebalanced. Basically, Humankind is what Civ 6 should have been, but without the flavor and variety of the Civilization series. So if that's something you're into and you want to give the boomer hedgehog people $50, then yeah, it's probably for you. In conclusion, it's alright. It's not better than Civ 5 with a Brave New World expansion pack. Sorry, ST.
Better than Civ 5 with the Brave New World expansion pack.
No, it's not. But it's better than plain old Civ 5. But that game is over a decade old, so that's like winning a foot race against a corpse. So I see this as a promising foundation for SEGA to shove another $60 worth of DLC down our throats. It's still a stupid name though.